I'll say plainly that in the way of connections, soldering points and wires for a computer, I frankly don't like a lot of them. And thinking as somebody who works with digital signal processing, the laneways, pathways of computers are so very limiting. I'm going to walk you through a solution that I know will work. And yet, though I don't think it can be bested, I don't like the physical connections of any kind. I never have. There were other methods. When I was young, um, like I'd mentioned in a previous video, thankfully, my mom didn't want to hire babysitters, so I was practically raised in old age homes when I was quite young. I was a lucky kid. It would be a very lucky kid uh, to have done that. Something happened to my dad and my mom. My sister was killed in a crash. I ended up going through the windshield. It did some brain damage to me, and that was pretty hard. It was a hard thing. I used to be a really smart kid, really smart kid, listening to all those old people as I did, and um, and I was lucky to have bounced back. It took me 20 years, 27 years to fully bounce back. I'm still bouncing back. My sister had been in a seat, one of the child seats. It was approved. It was a good seat, but the way that we got hit, we were coming over the crest of a hill, and another person was just slightly over the line, hit the very corner of the car, went slightly in towards, I think, a Cutlass Supreme we were in, a brown Cutlass Supreme. And because we were moving, regardless of the speed, it was the momentum, and the impact killed my sister right away. I went, I remember being pushed against the windshield and holding my weight up against the windshield. I thought I could hold it for a moment, and then the glass cracked. My head had been hit all the while against the glass, and I broke through, and I ended up 30 or 40 feet from the car. Seemed like it. I think it was over 20. Could have been 30. I was very young. And my dad injured his arm in a bad way. He got out of the car, saw his daughter, um, saw my mom, his wife, and it was a hard thing. Um, Not many people can appreciate what it's like to stare from the abyss, but I can. Doesn't make you retarded, doesn't make you stupid, but it does make you someone who wants to be something more if you've been in that situation. So let's get started with that. And I'm going to show you this idea. There are other ideas. There's only two of them. One is kind of like radio frequency and connections. and I'll explain it. But the reason I don't like them is the whole idea surrounding connections mathematically is to avoid there being a third party. It's like RAM. It's like RAM. It's like connections. It's like the bus, the cache, the bus, the RAM, the ASM. All of that is a third party. You don't want these third parties. You want software to do everything, and you want the data to be instantaneous. And if it is, we can do it. Let's get it done. Thankfully, I was lucky enough to get adopted. And my mother, she raised me alone. It was good. She did a really good job. Then she got married to a brilliant mathematician. He's been my father ever since. I have great respect for my birth parents. It was totally out of their control. Their parents, their son, I think it seemed to me like he had been dealt a tragedy, and another man who he got bail with ran away on bail. So my grandparents lost their bail posted because of their son's friend, and they ended up living with us in a small apartment. But this apartment was quite sizable for 2 kids and 2 adults. And because of that, a social worker came in, told us there wasn't enough room. And I was in foster homes up until the time I was about 10. It was an exciting experience because I was able to meet people from all over the world. And I found a source of entertainment for me was going to the library and reading encyclopedias. That's what the old people said to me, and I would try and remember. I kept trying to learn data, figure out things so I knew the world, just like they did. And I was surprised. I wanted to keep learning more. But let's get on this, right? Let's do this. This is the last piece, but there are 2 styles, and I'm going to explain them both now. I don't buy paper, so I have an envelope and a pen. So there are different methods. One is with a piece of steel, a connection on a board, and this steel, it has a certain type of solder on top of it. And it would probably look something like this, like a checkerboard. And they would be different pieces of different solder. It would be kind of hard to construe, but the math could be quantified. But this here, even though it is more sound, would ultimately have a limited amount of pathways. And that would be done almost like radio frequency, and then you would see it. And while this is the better method, it still requires a kind of chip or something like a resistor. And that's not really to see it. To see this. Why would you really want to see it? I don't know. Why would you want to have to use this thing? Whereas, in my opinion, I don't like the solution at all, but you can have 3 infrared. Two infrareds are always used, and then they send data to a collector. It is like a piece of zinc or magnesium. So what it might look like is this. On a board, it would be tiny, of course, and that would be the 3 sets of 3 IR beams, and then there'd be a pickup here. Without a doubt, this here would be limitless connections, but only if there was no chip. See? No capacitor, no nothing. And the reason is that this pickup here should be running entirely with math. IR beams are as fast as fiber optic. The only problem is if there's ever any physical damage to it, it limits the future of this product. You see? Perhaps the IR beams could be in something like silicon. I don't really like silicon, to be honest. So the 3 in there, 3 in there. What, and then you could have, it'd be like kind of like fiber optic, a tiny piece of silicon. But the whole point of this is to remove the chips, remove the latency, remove the issues. And then with pure math, these connect with one another. IR beams and their ability to connect is more than instantaneous. Do you need the silicon? I don't know. I think it's the soundest design. These are redundant, meaning they're always used. This one here is a backup if the others start breaking, if the other IR beams start breaking. So they connect. You could do with beams, 2 beams. Side by side, and there'd be more here. So all the connections would go here. And that's the issue. Do you really want 2 beams to connect with one another? Why beams? It's like magnetism. It's like the ideas I've been talking about. Tesseracts using connections. Connection here, connection here, connection here, connection here, connection here, connection here, for instance. Right? How many connections can these make? How many adjuncts? How many times, like a string, can this go from here to here to here to here, right? To here, right? To there, to there, to there, to there. It's the amount of connections it can create. And then furthermore, how many connections can still be created still? How many theoretically could be created? IR beam, the thing about IR beam is once it's sent a pulse is done. So you cannot interfere with that pulse. That's the one nice thing about IR beam. IR beam, though, I prefer it would be an LED. That would eventually, with math, allow more connections. Without a doubt, I'm torn between these ideas. I think a low-level radio beam could do quite well, but the IR beam could do more ultimately. But the IR beam, people eventually would keep saying chips, chips, chips. They'd say that they could use chips to do more instead of, digging in and then figuring out the math of the IR beam. Because the IR beam has so much surface value, even speed, impedance, flashing, turning. There are different types of LEDs that can change in color, for instance. What about color and hue? Isn't color and hue a type of math? Isn't that color and hue that it is sending a different type of math in itself? There are limitless connections with color that is created. Why should it just be a latent connection when you realize that IR beams can create color? You see? They can create just about any color. And think of how much more math that is. Think of how much more pathways that is. But like I said, chips. We don't want chips. We just want a hard drive to this thing, and then one chip that tells us what the time is, right? Just the time. That's all we want is the time. Every other connection goes directly to the hard drive, including the power. Math does the power. There is no need for anything but math. All these connections are just connections, and math figures out these connections. Math does it all, and that is beyond a quantum computer. Why should we be trying to make a quantum computer when the only issue with a computer is that the math itself is limited? And that is the end of my idea. And now you know who I am. And I had bigger ideas when I was young. But ultimately, these methods and all could probably last us for the next million years. This is Robert from DSPplug, wishing well the Stargate project. And I hope that we can see a time that this might actually occur. Bye-bye.